you ready to party? Let's go.
Jackie McCarroll, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. You came all the way from San Diego area?
I did. Yeah, a little south of downtown San Diego.
South of downtown, all the way here to Long Beach?
Oh, wow.
Girl, give it up, dude. Thank you so much. Oh, what happened to your finger? I just noticed that.
Yeah, I got a broken pointer finger there.
Oh, okay.
A little home project accident the other day.
It absolutely happens.
It does.
It does. Whoa, let's get into this. How did we all meet? We met you in San Diego at a freedom rally, right?
You did. We were at the Protect the Protectors rally in Balboa Park.
That's right.
Yes, and you guys interviewed me and my colleague Tawny that day.
I remember you had the really pretty big hat, right?
I had a big hat. I had a big hat for my big hair, and I had a old school cardboard sign. I think is what originally reeled you in was the cardboard sign. Yeah.
I remember because we talked to that Jason Momoa looking guy who's actually coming on the podcast. I forgot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, that big dude.
Yeah.
But we were talking to him, and then we looked over and we saw you and the other ladies. And we figured you were nurses because from the signs. And I'm like, we got to go talk to them.
Yeah. Which we appreciate it because you guys were right. You're ready to jump right in.
We're ready. That's why we were there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are a nurse, correct?
Correct. Pediatric nurse.
You're a pediatric nurse?
Pediatric nurse.
Let's just I'm gonna throw this out here. I don't know if Jordan can agree with this. We work in the fire service and we are both paramedics, and I will tell you right now, pediatric drug doses crush me sometimes. It is. I'm like, wait, what? This per kilogram and this and the milliliter. And I'm like, oh my god.
I know.
I made these little like flashcard cheat sheets that I keep with me for different types of calls just to help me.
Yeah, smart.
I'm like, dude, because you don't run the pediatric calls a lot.
Absolutely.
So when it comes, it's like your heart rate elevates.
Yes.
That panic kind of feels inside, but you
Yes.
got to be that consummate professional on scene.
Absolutely.
And not look like
Just
you don't
pull
know.
that card out.
I'm like looking all the way as we're driving to the call.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the percentages of having those type of calls where they're well involved are like quite a bit lower.
Sure.
So yeah, when you are jamming and you're things are coming in, you're like, oh, we have like a legit call working. Sometimes the last thing on scene that you're trying to do is calculate some numbers because of the drug doses. So I'm sure you have them down pat. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
For years, the majority of my experience is in the neonatal intensive care unit.
Oh,
so we're talking micro dosing, right? Everything is minute and per kilogram, and so you get savvy at that. But we are double, triple checking our calculations constantly to ensure safety. And when I decided to branch out and expand my care to complete pediatrics, 0 to 18, sometimes a little bit older, of course, the doses increase.
Yeah.
And that freaked me out because I would have big patients,
Right.
With even an IV running at 100, and I'd be like, 100?
Oh man.
Should be running at 0.5. Everything per weight. But yeah.
I'll tell you what, we need more nurses like you.
Well, thank you.
We need more nurses for the pediatric.
How long have you have you always been in pediatrics or?
I worked with adults very briefly. I started my nursing career in Boston.
Okay.
I'm from New England. I grew up in Massachusetts. And what?
Tom Brady fan, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you grow up in New England, it's sort of in your blood.
It's like you better, right?
Yeah.
You had a good run.
Sox, Celtics, Patriots,
Right.
Bruins, the whole 9 yards, and you really can't steer too far away from what you're supposed to be doing there in that state. So, but yes, no, as a new grad, I did get a nursing job in the city, which was what I wanted to do. I didn't want to start in a rural hospital. I wanted to get right to business, and I was very fortunate to get a good job there. And I started in an adult neurosurgical floor.
Wow.
And I was working 12-hour night shifts. I was commuting in and out of the city about an hour each way. That lasted about 4 months.
And you're done with it?
Whew. It was extremely challenging, especially when you're new and you're trying, you don't have that confidence yet. and you have so much to learn. I feel like even, I think that crosses across nursing, firefighters. That experience is just invaluable.
Right.
So you don't really have that experience behind you that you can say, you know what, I have a feeling this is where this is going. This is what I need to prepare for. It was very physically demanding, and I was also learning so much. But luckily, the woman that had hired me approached me and said, we're starting to bring in new grad nurses into the neonatal ICU. I thought of you. Would this be something you'd be interested in? And I'm very fortunate that I said yes. Yeah. The majority, I think I did NICU for about 15 years before I transitioned into the surgical department. So yeah, it was an amazing experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So primarily babies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, now, I mean, how does it work, at least for, like, you were neonatal.
Mm-hmm.
How's the mental stress and mental health when it comes to nurses and working in that environment like that? Because we talk about on here, our firefighters and mental health and talking and helping, because you work long shifts.
Yes.
Like you said, it was physical when you first started, and then you go in the neonatal. And what a lot of people don't understand is, a lot of times when they advertise these jobs that we're growing up, it's like, yeah, you should be a firefighter in fire service or get in the medical field, be a nurse or a doctor. But they never tell you the other side of the things that you see and deal with in the long hours that you work. Is that something that, at least in nursing, you deal with as well?
Absolutely. I think there's the sort of external factors. You're away from friends, you're away from families, you miss holidays. Sometimes you're out of the house before everybody's up and you're home after they're in bed. Those kind of challenging things personally. Mm-hmm. But professionally, there's very little, if any, focus on your mental health as a caregiver, and the toll that being a caregiver can take. And I think, one, in certain areas of medicine, specifically in intensive care and nursing, it takes a certain type of person.
Oh, yeah.
And collectively, you'll see, a fair amount of maybe type A personalities, not too many wallflowers. And, it's an intense job.
Yeah,
and you learn to cope, or at least I cope with a lot of things in life with humor. And
is it dark humor?
Of course.
Yeah, we're all dark.
It has to be.
It has to be.
You'll go nuts. Yeah.
I mean, the things we see and the things that we are a part of, when you're talking about life and death situations, especially with someone's infant, I can't think of a more vulnerable place for a family.
Yeah.
So you're not just taking care of that infant, you're taking care of the entire family unit. So, there's a camaraderie amongst colleagues that we keep each other going. That's awesome. Obviously, laughter helps. And if it's dark, it's done privately. And that's how we cope. Yeah. And then, but outside of that, I feel like not until I stepped away from the ICU did I realize the legitimate toll it had taken on me personally, spiritually, emotionally. Because you just it becomes your norm.
Right.
No. And you're used to that adrenaline.
It desensitizes you a lot, right?
Very much.
We've talked about that for us and how, we've been in the fire service for, 14, 15 years. You don't realize it after all that time. Things that affect a normal person, you're just like, whatever. Or you crack a crazy joke and people are like, you're so jacked up. You're like, what? That's just
like, it was funny. What are you?
Yeah.
Why you guys didn't get that?
I know. Or, how could you say that?
Right.
And I'm like, did I just say that out loud?
Right.
But specifically, I hadn't necessarily left the hospital yet, and I had decided to transition to a different department. And I needed more flexibility in my schedule, and it was a very intense environment, and I thought, maybe I need to step back from this and work more with children that are typical, maybe need surgery or going through something, but less chronic, less intense. And it didn't take much time for me to realize, wow, the impact that was having on me, and the fact that I could continue to provide for myself and actually make the same amount of money, popsicles, talking to kids, handing out paperwork. I mean, it's still risk involved. You still have to be on your feet, and you need to be paying attention and be doing a great job. But it was much less emotional, and just to be able to talk to my patients a lot. Infants don't talk back, and a lot of them have breathing tubes. So to be able to have that exchange sort of rejuvenated my career. It was good.
I've always had like a tremendous amount of respect for what you guys do, and I know we're in the healthcare industry as well, but it's like Tim was saying, even 14, 15 years in, at the moment you could probably think of a call or a situation or something where you had to deal with tragedy and just kind of the most messed up things you can think of. But what's interesting with it is that even in that, our interactions with the public as far as life safety goes or treatment and getting them to the hospital is brief. Anywhere down here, unless you go inland, you might have like 45 minutes with a patient, an hour at the longest. But normally it's 10, 15, 20 minutes as your interaction. And even then you build like this rapport with people or family members and trying to mitigate the scenario. Whereas opposed to you guys, you have long-term connections, and like we were just saying, it may be 1 month old, if critical care, what have you, that they're not talking, they're on tubes and everything, but now your interactions are with the parents or the family members, and you have to go through this process with them. And it's, to me, like I'd take my hat off that because like your emotional capacity of what, you have to be able to shut things off because you do have to work, and doing that for so long, like you were saying, like the job change, it's like, hell yeah, I'm handing out stickers and lollipops. And, oh, we got a shot today. It's going to be okay, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus like, hey, your child may only have a month or two to live.
Right.
Right? And so it's like you go with these different variations of extremeness.
It is.
But but when I say that, like the mental health aspect, I can only imagine because even today, like there's a handful of calls in my career that I never want to see again, ever. And every once in a while, even non-prompted, I'll start thinking about it. Not that I'm struggling with anything, but that it's just natural progression in your life where like I'll see the car accident that I ran with the kid that, didn't make it or whatever. And you're just like, oh, geez, I remember that. Absolutely. That was terrible. So now I can only imagine like having the time to build that rapport.
Right.
I don't know how you do it.
We have
put it that way.
Patients that are there often upwards of a year.
Oh my God.
And then sometimes we'll get transferred then to, say, a medical floor or a respiratory floor. There may be things that keep them there, but when we're dealing with infants that are born at 24, 25 weeks, extreme prematurity, again, I mentioned the vulnerability of a family unit. I'm a mom. I can't even imagine being in that position. And so you do have family-centered care. You take that on. Typically, you get to know families very well in their scariest, darkest moments. And, you mentioned that being able to sort of leave it at work. And I thought I was really good at that. I was like, oh yeah, I get good at that. You leave work, you take the scrubs off, or you guys, you hang up your uniform and you go in the house and you transition into, outside of work mode. Has been a handful of experiences in my career that I have been unable to just leave at the job and drive home and be okay. It took, it's taken time to heal from those experiences emotionally, and they do come back at times. You remember certain experiences. But yeah, I think, again, not until I got to hand out popsicles or now I'm not at the hospital, I realized, you thought you were doing a great job just leaving it at the door, but in actuality, I wasn't completely. You can't. It becomes part of who you are.
Do you think that as you get further into your career, it becomes harder to leave it at work?
I think when I became a parent, that had a big impact. I had worked in the neonatal ICU, but I was young. I was in my 20s. I didn't have children. I loved children. Obviously, I went into pediatrics because that was something I was really interested in, and I love kids, but I hadn't had that personal experience. Now, when I became a mom and returned to work, it took on a much more real, personal way for me. And I feel like I'm already quite empathetic, sometimes to a fault, where, you feel people's pain and suffering and you want to help them. And so that sometimes made it more challenging. And yes, I think as I get older and I have more life experience and value to every day, every minute, is an opportunity with our children, with our family, with our friends. And you see some really challenging things in a hospital environment. So yes, it definitely does get harder, more emotional.
I totally
Yes,
agree.
For sure.
I think that I used to be able to deal. Not that so when I say this, I still feel like I deal with it well to a certain extent, but nothing really would bother me like leaving from work. It's like, yeah, I had a crazy shift. I can do a laundry list of things that we'd seen or dealt with, and most people probably think it's kind of crazy. But I'm like, what are we doing today?
Right.
But that was, again, younger, no family, nothing, going on like that. And now I feel like, which I also thought was kind of ironic, because I felt like I had always done well with kid calls or pediatric, responses. And it wasn't like in that mind frame, I thought, man, when I have children one day, I'm going to be like, don't sweat it, Dad.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I am 100%
How's that working out? Yeah.
I am the most helicopter parent that I feel like, and it's somewhat embarrassing because I freak out over everything. But when I run calls, I'm like, no, they're going to be okay, and this is that. Oh, well, this, going down your thing, and you're trying to rationalize with other parents who are freaking out, and you are always in that hey, cool, calm demeanor, But at home, my son bumps his head. I'm like, okay, did you fall from this high or this?
Right. Right.
Kind of. It's just funny how things change over a period of time in relation to work versus real life.
I think that's part of the training too. I mean, you do learn how to de-escalate a intense situation. We show up on the scene frazzled, crying, thinking, how am I going to handle this? That doesn't necessarily give the community or our patients' families the security that, this individual is a professional and they have it under control.
Oh, the public would freak out. If we freak out, everything goes down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've seen it happen.
Yes.
Oh my God.
If you called 911 and the people to show up to help were crying and looked very confused, you'd be
right.
It'd
Absolutely.
be red alert right
Absolutely.
now. Absolutely. Like, oh, no.
No.
I'd tell them, get the hell out of here. I'll handle it myself.
Another crew. Get out of here, yeah.
I mean, we're human. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's the same for you guys, but I can't think of one code situation or one resuscitation situation where my adrenaline wasn't pumping and my hands weren't shaking and I wasn't, like you said, looking at that sheet, making sure I'm doing the right thing, or we're delegating our different roles. Is everybody doing their part? Are there too many people around? Do we need to pull back? What's the impression are we giving if the families or the community is watching? But it becomes part of the training. You learn how to pull it together, remain that calm force, and do what needs to get done in the moment.
Yeah, you guys both brought up something really interesting. I would say early on in my career too, you will work 2 or 3 days in a row, go on a strike, whatever it may be, and see the craziest stuff and just go home and go surf and have fun. And I don't have kids, not married, but I have noticed over the past few years, things are impacting me a lot different mentally. And I'm like, what is that? Why am I getting emotional over this? Like, what's going on? I think it was last year, I unfortunately saw someone take their life on a bridge, and it messed with me for a week, dude.
No.
It made me, I remember I was driving and I started kind of crying. I'm like, what is going on? But I know for me, it seems like as time goes on, I'm in my mid-30s, and you don't know this, Jackie, but was it 2 years ago? I was in a pretty bad accident. Was it 2?
About 2.
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago. I lost my speech, had a TBI, all this stuff. It was bad.
Wow.
Yeah, so it took me some time to get back. And, that one hit me hard because I think it was 20 feet from going into the riverbed on a rainy day. Rolled the car off the freeway.
Oh, my.
So I remember the last thing I remember was the car rolling, but then wake up in the hospital and I couldn't speak. Things are and then COVID hit.
How scary.
Oh, it was wild. Wild.
This was right before COVID.
It was right when COVID
Wow.
hit. Literally, I think it was
First month.
the first month of it, and then it happened.
And you made a full recovery.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't feel as sharp as I used to be. But my neurologist was like, "Look, man, it just takes time.
Takes time.
Yeah, it takes time." He's like, "It'll come back, but you can't be hard on yourself." But I think that's the hardest part for me is everyone's like, "Oh, you're good. You seem normal," but internally, you're just like, I'm not as on it as I was, But I know after that accident, realizing how close I was to dying and, coming back to work and stuff, things are different for me now. When I see these calls and people are unfortunately losing their lives or taking their life, it really impacts me because I remember thinking, God, I was fighting to save my life. Why did this guy decide not to keep his,
Right.
Yeah. So it's just weird how with time and experience and life and I have 8 nieces and nephews, so I don't have kids, but I love those kids. I mean, with all my heart, and I love taking up, like the other day we went to their softball games and baseball games, and they range from 3 all the way to 16. There's a lot of them. It's fun. But, after you're spending time with them, then you go back to work and you see something happen to kids, it's just different.
Absolutely.
And I can see now, I'm a part of a cancer study for, firefighter cancer. And they're saying actually how that a big carcinogen for us is lack of sleep, which a lot of departments don't understand. And they're saying, these firefighters that are at busy stations, you need to rotate them out. These guys that are running, 15 to 25 calls a shift, not getting sleep, missing lunch, they're always out. It's literally killing them.
Oh, sure.
And Jordan and I, in our early on in our careers, I know we were both this way. We prided ourselves in being at the busy stations and running all those calls. Yeah. Being up all night. It was like this badge of honor and courage, right? And then you're like, wait a minute, hold on here. You get some time on, you're like, so I could go work at a station where they run 2 calls and they make they make the same amount of money. But I'm over here running 25 calls, not sleeping. I'm gaining weight because all my hormones, everything's off or eating out all the time. Like,
right.
But it comes with time, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people in this industry, they're a certain type of person. Out the gate, they want the adrenaline. They want they want to take on the hardest cases. They want to be at the most critical scene. Just like a sponge, mainly to learn. That's what they're there to do. You want to prove yourself. There's so many different elements. I mean, for years, I wanted the most challenging patients. I wanted to be a part of that. It was challenging, and you work closely as a team, and that's how you grow in your profession. Now, I've been doing this over 20 years. Hey-o. And where's that bell? Yeah,
you hit that bell.
There it is. And I feel very comfortable stepping back. There is a new generation that is as bright-eyed and eager. Not to say I'm not bright-eyed and eager, but they want the experience that I wanted 20 years ago. And I, as a mom and somebody who has seen a lot throughout my career, get a lot of joy out of Band-Aids, popsicles. You get to go home today, and I get to tell you get to go home today. Right. Less serious conversations, less grief. But again, families come in, their child broke their arm on the monkey bars and trampolines, y'all. I'm telling you, those two things, they'll get you every time.
So I broke my collarbone on the monkey bars.
Bars. Did you?
Yeah.
How'd you break your collarbone on the monkey bars?
Well, Tim, what happened was there was a group of kids I was trying to impress, and
that's typically how it goes down. Right?
Yeah, everyone had been jumping to like the second rung across and then starting from there, and I was like, I'm going to go to the third one out the gate. So it was like a little bit more of a leap. Yeah. And when I caught it, my body weight went this way and I let go, and so I basically landed flat on my back. And I broke my collarbone.
Sam's calling it out. Sam knows.
This was last year.
This was 2 years ago.
That was good.
All right.
I like that, Jackie. That was good. Yeah. This was last year at the firehouse. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't monkey bars. Was
4
it?
rungs, not 3.
Okay.
And but it's probably a lot easier. I don't want to say easier, but like a little bit more of a comfort zone type.
Monkey bars, trampolines, but when those families come in, I know we're going to handle this. Yeah, it's going to be all right. You're going to get your popsicle and your paperwork. You're going to go home. It's going to be sore. You're going to heal. You're going to be back at school, and life will go on for you.
Right.
But in that moment, for those families, terrified. Anxiety is skyrocketing. Their child's never had surgery before. The word anesthesia freaks people out. So you're still in a position to sit with that family. And really, it's the nurse that is spending and investing the time in making sure they know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That they're in a good environment. Again, that's where you bring the calm,
Right.
you bring the peace, and really you've been successful at your job if by the end of that interaction they trust you're there for their child. Their child is going to be okay, and you'll tell this story at Christmas this year. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think that nurses don't get enough credit for. Because everyone in the medical community, everyone touts the doctors. The doctors. They're smart. Doctors generally suck at compassion, and I'll say that again.
Terrible.
Doctors generally
Terrible.
suck at compassion or being empathetic to patients, and I think it's because they're so smart sometimes that they're dumb socially. But that's where
That's the best way to put it.
It is.
doesn't mean they're not the most intellectually smart person in the world.
And you're not saying this from being a jerk.
No.
You're just,
No.
it's like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's almost like some of these people that are really smart, whether it's doctors or other, there's
Socially
they're just,
Socially
they're
inept.
off. Yeah, they don't know
Yep.
the social cues, So I get what you're saying.
Totally. And because,
Yeah.
but that's why when a nurse steps in, you are the bridge between the doctor and the patient care because look, I've worked in the industry for, 14 years, whatever. And, I've seen it firsthand where it's like, and I know that this doctor is the shit in this area. So it's like, if this was my family member, I would want them to go to this doctor as well. However, they are terrible at making you feel confident
Right.
that you're going to get out of the situation that you're in.
Right.
Because they'll list,
Yes.
"Okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to treat it, and this is what's
Yeah.
going on. Nowhere in that did you say you're going home at some point.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's just awesome what you guys do and being able to
Right.
have that empathetic response to make people feel comfortable in these situations that are absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
But
That's why it makes me upset, like with these current times, and we're going to get into this here soon, but how we are letting nurses go because they aren't vaxxed. I think it's such bullshit because I know from my accident what those nurses meant to me, especially in my time of need when I couldn't speak. And I was literally panicked. I thought I lost my career. My life is done. Like everything's over. And I remember sitting there, I was like on the backboard. They got all these freaking stuff going to my arms, IVs. My neck hurts. My back hurts. And I remember, I'll just admit it. I started crying. I was so absolutely panicked and scared. And I'm
Rightfully
freaking
so.
14, 15-year firefighter, right? Supposed to be the toughest person out there. And I'm thinking my life is like done. What am I going to do for work? And I started kind of crying. I remember, I wish I knew her name. God, it gets me emotional thinking about it. But she started like kind of petting my head like, hey, Tim, it's going to be fine. Like, we're going to take care of you. Don't stress. Just relax.
Yeah.
And just those words of comfort coming from that nurse meant the world because
Absolutely.
at the time the pandemic had hit, so no family could come see me. They weren't like anyone in the hospitals. I was alone.
Yeah.
And she stayed there with me the entire freaking time.
Right.
So nurses don't get enough credit for that. They really, really don't. Your job is so vital in the medical field to everybody.
I agree.
Everybody, whether it's the emergency room, NICU. Oh boy. I'm sorry, I'm on call.
Oh.
Yeah, but whether you're, whatever part of the hospital it is, I
Right.
agree with Jordan. We've worked with doctors often in the ER, and without saying much, we have bumped heads with
Right.
doctors, and the nurses come in the middle, and they'll tell the doctor, "You're wrong. He's right."
Sure.
It's like just
Yeah.
because we don't have 13 years of school, we may only have like 9 to have a paramedic certificate. It's like we know we're good at our job as medics in the field, and then we bring them to the hospital. Things might present different, or we get more information. It's like, well, how come you didn't check this? It's like,
Right.
dude, chill.
Right.
We had a million things happening. at the scene
Absolutely.
right now,
Absolutely. And hindsight's 20/20. So I love that when somebody shows up on the scene and why didn't you do it? I'm like,
Right.
if you could have been there,
Right.
maybe you would know exactly why we did what we did.
Yeah.
All right, and everything's so situational dependent. It's
Absolutely.
like in the I don't want to say real world, but not hospital setting, nothing is ideal typically.
No.
So when you you do make whatever decision and route you're going as far as treatment, and you get the patient to the appropriate hospital, and then you get there and like for whatever reason you forgot a blood sugar, and let's say it wasn't pertaining, but let's say, for the sake of this, we'll say this. We'll say
No,
this
you
is-
didn't.
Hold on, we'll say this is a trauma. Okay, where
Glucose.
last thing we're thinking is a sugar issue, right? But when you get there and you start getting stepped on,
first thing they ask.
Yeah, well, what was the sugar? You're like, what do you mean? They're missing a leg.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like not because of
Yeah.
diabetes.
Right.
Like they just got lopped off. Okay, so
Right. You didn't do a 12 lead on this guy? Like, he was crumpled up in a car. We cut him out. We started IV upside down under the, it's like,
Right.
we tried our
Right.
best here, man.
Right.
when they say when they ask for things, so they're like, well, what was the pulse ox? I would normally, or like, you didn't get a pulse. I just normally go, fact. Didn't happen. So I was like, but we can get you one right now if you want.
Slap it on for you.
Happy to put one on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
It's just funny the dynamic of.
You just got to
of
keep
the-
smiling.
You have to.
Kill him with
Otherwise,
kill him with kindness.
Kill them
dude.
with kindness every time.
totally.
And I mean, I have worked with physicians that do have a good bedside manner that are not socially inept and great with families, but they are few and far between.
That's why I said generally.
They are few and
I was
far
like,
between.
They're out there and
Yeah.
they're rock stars in their own right. So
A lot of them are in their own cerebral space, or they are overwhelmed with the amount of work they have to do. And they come in and they see what they need to see and they say what they need to say. And they're not going, they'll explain it to a degree, usually in medical terminology. And you have a family that's completely panicked, and the doctor leaves the room, and the family goes, what did he just say? What did she just say? And so it's your job to break it down.
Right.
Make it simpler, not to offend the family, but just break it down so they can understand it. And it's an important part of the job. And you mentioned advocacy. You go into the emergency department and, well, why didn't you do this or do that? And a nurse steps up and says, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Is that the right call?
Yeah.
Or maybe they did this for a reason. Advocacy is a huge part of a nurse's job.
You know what? You bring up a good point, because I'm not going to say the hospital I was at, but I remember this clearly. This nurse fought for me while I had my injury. I guess this hospital is known for doing this, but they wanted to take a piece of my skull off. And she said, no, he's not presenting. Whatever she said was like, this is not the time. Like, you need to give it more time.
Sure.
There's no reason to do that right now. And the doctor, she's like, no, we're not doing that. I remember thinking, oh my God, thank you. Like, I don't want a
Right.
piece of my skull off.
Well, especially if you are, if you're nonverbal
Yeah.
or your communication is compromised, that is a fearful place to be as a patient.
Very fearful. Yeah.
And you're relying upon, because, again, it's a huge team that creates healing and gets people out of the hospital. But the person you see the most is the nurse. And when you're ill, if anybody's ever been in a hospital, obviously you have, I've been an inpatient, you rely on them for your food, your cleanliness, your voice at times. And you have to have a backbone, and you have to be willing to go toe to toe with someone who has a higher education, who perhaps has been doing it longer. But you're at the bedside, and with years of experience, you learn he doesn't need that right now. Or I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Yeah.
He's presenting in a certain way. I'm sure you guys see that in the field too.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't read this in a textbook, but after you've seen it 5 times, you know where it's going. And I've gone to physicians in the middle of the night and said, I think we need to do this. This is where this is heading. No. So,
Right.
yes, and I'm not going to leave you alone
good patient,
and
yeah.
until you make me feel better about this, or explain why you're not willing to proceed in the way that I think is right for the patient. And you don't always see eye to eye. As they get to know you better, and then they're like, okay, that you build that trust.
Right.
Luckily, you get to a point where sometimes you just need to ask, have the
Yeah.
confidence to
Have
ask.
the courage to ask.
The courage to
That can be
ask.
tough. That can be real tough.
It's tough for a lot of new nurses. I think it's a very intimidating environment.
I think that like over time though, those kind of skills you pick up on as far as like getting to know your staff, or we'll say team, right? As that builds over time, then you get into the realm where because your suggestions will hold weight.
Yes.
And as opposed to just coming in and be like, no, I think it's this. And they're
Right.
like, I don't really know you, so
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and do my thing.
Exactly.
And we see it on our end as well. Like, as we, if you start running in the same hospital, you get to know everybody and the nursing and doctor staff. And now, it's like, those are the times when it's fun.
Yeah.
I think, because now it's like, who's working, you're coming in there, they're not busting you up on anything you did or didn't do.
Right.
And, sometimes they'll even ask, like, from the paramedic level, like, hey, where you were feeling like part of what you're bringing in, obviously you're part of the process, but again, like, we're very preliminary. There's only a handful of things that we can do as far as patient treatment. But it's a nice feeling of being like you're kind of part of the team.
Absolutely.
So, and at the end of the day, I just think that makes for a better patient care. So,
Can I tell you something funny about that my hospital stay? So, like, I got the report,
Okay.
and I was looking, and I don't remember, of course, much that happened.
Sure.
But I guess when they asked me what my allergies were in
Okay.
the hospital, I said my ex-wife. I was thinking, I got a damn good autopilot, man.
yeah.
I got a
Funny, for sure.
I was thinking too. I was like,
Does it
holy
say
shit!
on your
It
discharge
literally
papers?
It quoted it?
Allergies?
It says it right there. Allergies. Patient states ex-wife.
Wow.
I was like, all right. So I got injured, but my autopilot was working pretty good.
What happens?
Yeah.
I get real itchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have been how do we kind of say this? You're not working right now, right?
Not in the hospital.
Okay. Did they force you to leave?
Yes.
Okay. And that's because of vax mandates.
Vaccine non-compliance.
Wow. And this is all because your personal choice was to not put something in your body that you did not agree with.
Correct.
How many nurses that you worked with had were asked to leave as well?
Well, we had over 300 employees.
When you say employees, that means not nurses as well, right?
Correct.
Overall, everybody?
Overall staff.
Okay.
And that is my understanding. To be honest, we were never given, and they were unwilling to release the exact amount of employees.
Of course.
There were hospitals throughout San Diego that were very transparent, was printed in the newspaper, and that did not happen at Rady Children's. So I can't say exactly how many nurses. I know approximately 300 staff were let go, and we have a lawsuit pending, and a lawsuit based on discrimination against Rady Children's Hospital, and that's pending. And there are nearly 40 of us in the lawsuit, not all nurses.
Okay.
So I don't have the exact number of nurses.
How did they break that to you? Was it a letter? Did you go to work? Because I saw a video of another nurse. I think it was in San Diego, maybe Kaiser, but they were escorted out
Yes.
of the building. Was it
Yes.
something like that, or was it just a phone call, email?
Right. So I did not get escorted out. Actually, I'm assuming at this point they've cut the lock and emptied my locker. I received a letter of sorts and was never allowed back. My badge was shut off. I never said goodbye to colleagues, never cleaned out my locker, nothing.
Just ruthless.
Ruthless. So we, healthcare workers were, and, frontline, were the first people really affected by the mandates. We were supposed to be, honored and excited that we were given the opportunity to vaccinate
Right.
before the general public because, we were in a high-risk environment. So nurses specifically had a very early deadline once California set that health worker mandate. We had to have both doses by October 1st, or if we chose the J&J, you had to be fully vaccinated by October 1st, 21.
21. Okay.
So initially, when the vaccines were offered, there wasn't a mandate. Okay. So I made my personal choice and I continued to work. I knew where it was heading. I had some experience with that hospital in particular. A lot of nurses and a lot of facilities now, they also mandate the influenza vaccine.
Oh.
Is that something where, when that comes out, and normally when you go into the hospitals, you'll see a lot of people wearing masks because if you don't take the influenza vaccine, don't you have to wear a mask for a couple weeks or in that time period?
Well, when I became a nurse, it wasn't mandated. It was an option. And when at some point they decided to make it a condition of employment, I had a negative adverse reaction twice to the H1N1 influenza vaccine.
Oh, wow.
And the first time it happened, I really couldn't for sure associate it with the vaccine. And I had taken the flu vaccine throughout my career. It was expected of me as a nurse. And to be honest, I did what was expected of me and I did what was asked of me. Did I do my independent research back in the day? No. Not until I had this experience did it prompt me to, deep dive into what am I putting in my body? Why is my body having this experience?
Yeah.
So I did it again the following year because it was asked of me again, and everybody said, well, no, that didn't happen because of that. It was just a coincidence.
Right.
Well, it happened again. So that was the end of the flu vaccine for me. And so I was somewhat grandfathered in. I was able to keep my job and continue to work because the policy wasn't in place when I was hired. However, my badge would be laminated with a fluorescent green cover, and you had to wear a mask for the entire flu season. So when our infectious disease decided it's flu season, when there's so many cases in the community and they declare, okay, flu season is going. It started today. Get your green badge, get your mask on. And you had to wear it throughout flu season until they decided that the cases were no longer to a degree where the community would be at risk by me not having the flu vaccine. We were not allowed to eat in the break room. We had to eat outside.
They're segregating you.
Oh, absolutely.
Full segregation.
Full segregation. I mean, and there were nurses that worked at night.
Yeah.
Cafeteria is closed. It's on the other side of the hospital. And you're not allowed to eat with your colleagues. You have to eat outside. You can't take your mask down.
That is such bullshit.
So I had navigated that for years.
Right.
And, and so really when we talk about HIPAA and patient privacy and my personal privacy, I can't have a bright green badge. And people are going to ask questions.
Yeah.
It's normal. They're not trying to be invasive. Well, some people are, but for the most part, why is your badge green? I don't get the flu shot. Well, why not? Really? That's sort of my decision. It's my personal business. So I was used to navigating that.
Yeah.
And I worked with people that would make fun of it, joke about it. And you have to take it lightly. I'm going to get through my day with my mask and my green badge. I make jokes. That's how I cope. It's not easy being green.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. Yeah. I have a very similar kind of progressive story on how, because I stopped taking the flu vaccine years ago. And I had always taken it during, that. And then I'd worked a couple years before H1N1 had come out. And that was the new thing. Oh, sorry. That was hello. There we go.
There you go.
That was the new thing. And I had just gotten hired with a department. And so being on probation, I was they put me into this. They did one of the big churches. They had this, vaccine day, and you're gonna show up and be a part of it. When I was there was a nurse who's like, "Oh, do you want the H1N1?" I was like, "Yeah, right." I'm
dying
here.
to.
Well, at the time I didn't really care.
Right.
I was just whatever. Yeah, go ahead. You know? I was this is probably the least thing that's gonna hurt me that I'd put in my body.
Sure.
And I got super sick, and it was I normally a flu for me is 12 hours to maybe one night of fever or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the next day I'm pretty much good to go. The next year, the flu shot came out, got the shot, super sick. I mean, that night, and I was that's weird. It never
When they
happened.
combined the H1N1 into that second shot.
Right.
And now they no longer make it.
Oh,
because
they don't.
it was harmful.
Okay. Well, there you
People
go.
had too many adverse reactions.
But H1N1.
Correct.
But I had even, because this was probably 2 years past. And like, because I remember asking the nurse educator at the time, like, is there any correlation with this? Because like, I normally never get sick from this kind of stuff. And now this is twice that I've taken the shot and been the most sick I've ever been.
Right.
And they were like, no, that's not how this works. It's impossible that, it's not impossible. It's highly improbable that you would have this kind of reaction from the flu shot. So I said, okay. And I got it again. Sure as shit. But within the next 12 hours, it's like every time has been the most sick I've ever been.
Right.
So I thought, I'm going to stop doing this and just run the risk of getting the regular flu, and then let my body do its thing, which I went like 7 years without getting the flu.
Same.
And then it's like I got sick one time and it was very marginal. And then again, 5 years later, I get it again.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, I like this timeline a little bit better than every year, at least knowing the day I'm going to get sick.
Absolutely.
And even to this day, like I don't take the flu shot. And those are my reasons for it.
Right.
And whether or not, you can battle that one scientifically or not, I just know that that's a really, really hard coincidence that it seems to be working out that way.
I had a lot of kickback, from my employer, and there's no correlation, and the CDC doesn't recognize what happened to you as a side effect. There was no other way to explain it. I was in my 30s. I was healthy. I was doing triathlon, cycling, running, eating clean. I mean, I was the healthiest I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, your immune system's cracking on all cylinders.
And since we're sharing, I
Sorry.
I got shingles. That was my side effect.
What?
And that is nasty, and it hurts.
Yeah.
And
Brutal.
yeah, that had nothing to do with that. And then it happened again. The second year, and they, kept saying, it's not the shingles doesn't correlate with the flu vaccine. I said, well, it's doing something to my immune system. I'm not saying that this vaccine is causing shingles.
Right.
I'm saying it's causing immune dysfunction, and I have a latent virus that is presenting itself now that wouldn't have had my immune system not been challenged in that way.
Right.
There's, I didn't get shingles spontaneously.
Oh.
Ever prior. I haven't had it since, and I also haven't had the flu.
I haven't had the flu shot in 10 years.
Yeah.
And you bring up another solid point is with all the stuff that's been happening, in our country and around the world with vaccines and mandates, is you were healthy. You were exercising, probably more than most, but you're still exercising, right? You were eating healthy. Why? How come they weren't pushing that during this whole time? Why is it like, how many times did you get, I saw it multiple times, we're going to give you free donuts if you come get a shot. We're going to give you hamburgers. Why don't you tell people to live a healthier life and get out and exercise and eat right? Those are things that we've all seen it, that will help you if you, are almost diabetic like my mother. I had to help her try to lose weight, and that helped her a lot. I mean, there's so many things that will help you physically if you actually start eating correctly and exercise. But that wasn't pushed.
It's not profitable.
Very correct. Very good.
Sorry.
Very good.
I've been waiting. There's a lot of ding.
I dig that bell.
But exactly what you said is the blatant hypocrisy and the development and just the layout of everything that's been going on.
Yeah.
And I'm again, I got to throw out the disclaimer. You do you.
Absolutely.
If you fit criteria that you feel will make you safer and believe that this will help you, then I'm all for it. You do your thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, just like what you were saying, like we know that taking care of yourself is of the utmost importance, right? And we know by keeping your immune system healthy gives you the best chance to fight anything, not just COVID, right? 1 second.
Oh, it's got him. It's got him.
Uh-oh. You got the tickle?
Yeah, I know. I was like, dang it. But what's crazy is that whole part of the get the vaccine, there's a lot of incentivization from like fast food companies, Krispy Kreme, Dunkin'
Wiping
Donuts.
your criminal record?
Yeah,
that happened. That
no
happened.
way.
Yes, that did
No
happen.
freaking
Yes.
way.
Yes. I don't want to sidetrack from what you're saying, but yes.
But that one's a good one. We can get into that.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Where was this?
It was somewhere in the South. And they incentivized certain communities that you showed up and you got your vaccine. Now, there was level of criminal activity that could be expunged. You couldn't be like a serial killer and they're like, whatever.
Woo!
But
I'll get the shot.
yeah, if you were like a low-level criminal who maybe had a series of misdemeanors or whatever it might be, they were willing to, is it expunge? Is that the right word?
Yes.
Your record, clear your record if you get the vaccine. That to me was the utmost epitome of just, I don't, what's the word for that? I mean,
what it is it just shows you that there's a bigger push for a different reason, right? Because like if it was coming from just purely good, which I think look, I shit on this a lot. So like there's a lot of good people that are involved with that side of the COVID response. And I think there's a lot of people who think that they are doing good for the sake of humanity. Right. But I also feel like there's a lot of selfishly driven things within it as well, like most things, so it's not like this is some like, it's just on a huge scale.
Right.
It's like you had Bill de Blasio talking about getting, Big Macs or whatever from McDonald's.
What a joke. That guy's a complete joke.
You have these, absolutely. And you have these government figures that are promoting this like unhealthy stuff because it's food, right? And the one thing that we can kind of agree on is that we know if you have comorbidities, which is like cholesterol issues, heart problems, overweight, diabetes, all these things, that you potentially will have an issue with not just COVID, but just getting sick in general, right? But there was nothing to keep that in check. That went on for months. If we want to call it the science was there as far as the comorbidity issues, but it didn't stop anyone.
Right out the gate.
Yeah, they were like, you can go outside and walk around a little bit, but stay by yourself, wear a mask, do all this stuff. And it's like, they're like, if anything, at least champion the health part of it.
And 2 years into it, it's still not a priority. That's the thing. I mean, I think I saw something recently. I don't really do mainstream media, but occasionally you can't avoid it and pops up into your head or it's on the news or whatever. And it was related to vitamin D.
Finally.
And I just cringed because I thought we had that scientific data out the gate early in this pandemic. We knew that the majority of people that were having severe outcomes were vitamin D deficient. Is there anything easier, cheaper? I mean, there anything easier that we can do? First of all, even if you can't get a vitamin D supplement, sunshine.
Step out in your backyard.
Step outside.
Yes.
Fresh air. Move your body. Get some vitamin D. Recently they're sending out checks to people, pandemic response checks. I think recently they were. Tests.
Did it.
The tests. They're sending everybody in America tests. Send everybody in America a pair of sneakers and some vitamin D.
Yeah.
So stupid.
I know the test is like how much
So
those are. And like if you really think about it, it's like what's the average cost of a rapid test? Like if you went into a spot, they charge like $150.
It's grotesque.
Yeah, but now they're like, now we could send them to you, which doesn't actually account for any places that have to accept like a negative test in 24 hours. You can't just walk in with your actual test and be like, look, it shows negative. You still got to go pay for one of those things.
Yeah.
I think some hospitals do it for free, but do you want to wait in a
But nothing's
5-hour
for free.
line? Of course
Somebody paid for it.
Taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're
Exactly.
paying for that.
What I find interesting in that is that like, okay, so we know vitamin D, we know vitamin C, we know that zinc and possibly your belief on quercetin. Am I saying it right? Damn it!
I always say it wrong. Quercetin.
It's
the
it's
Q.
the one that starts with a Q.
The Q.
That normally goes along with zinc.
And NAC.
Yeah.
Also, NAC is very important.
But when you have this information that's out there, even if you're not trying to make the argument that it's better to be to be vaccinated versus taking these supplements daily, how come these big businesses, like as far as like food conglomerates, right? Like if you're Yoplait or whatever, I mean, like we had like this big boom with pre and probiotics, right? That you start seeing those in a lot of merchandise. Why didn't they jump on that, being like, this yogurt's fortified in vitamin C and zinc? You know what I mean? It's like you could have. I mean, if we're talking about just making money, because at the end of the day, that's what I think powers all of this.
Absolutely.
I think it's just it's money, it's financial opportunity from the top down, but it's like, why wouldn't that have been the push? Because you can essentially still run the you should get vaccinated. It's the best way to protect yourself, and this message is brought to you
Right.
by, I don't know why I keep
Right.
thinking of YoPlay. I can't think of
It's
another,
okay.
another company. But you see where I'm going with it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
but it was never an and. It was, in my opinion, right out the gate, it was, we're going to fix this with a vaccine. And I sort of had this analogy in my head. It's like, you know, if you get hit with a horrible storm and your roof rips off, right? Rain's pouring in your house and you got a problem on your hands. Do you go out to the tool shed and grab one tool? Do you just grab your hammer and get up there on the roof and just start fixing it with the hammer? Or do you grab the whole toolbox and maybe even invite a friend over to help you?
Right.
And it takes a team. It takes multiple tools, multiple pieces of equipment to get it fixed and put back together.
Yeah.
And so there was such a strong push, warp speed, right out the gate that for me was like, whoa, okay, like that might be a component and it might be appropriate for certain demographics, high-risk individuals. It might be appropriate. But are we looking at this holistically? Are we looking at health, underlying comorbidities? Obesity is a huge factor.
And America is very overweight.
We are the biggest country in the nation. So, or in the world for that matter.
Right.
And then I'm like, well, we have all these people that really are forced now with lockdowns to stay in their homes. Nobody ever said, hey, you can do 50 jumping jacks today and go for a walk around the block with your dog. Like if you do a little bit each day, every pound you lose increases your likelihood of not having severe illness.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, the PSAs could have been portion control, different things to be able to eat daily. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like if you turn on the news, depending on whatever, I mean, look, there was a period of time, it was both ends of like the political spectrum were pushing towards this for the most part.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't, hey, this next 5 minutes, we're going to go over how you should maybe line out your meal plans for the day or anything, you know, which sounds silly saying out loud right now. But instead of it just being like, hey, here's the death ticker and the only thing that you can do to help everybody else is to be vaccinated.
Right.
And it's tough because it was, you know, that you brought up the Operation Warp Speed, right? Because that was at the time, it was like everything coming from the CDC side and Fauci is doom and gloom, right? That we don't know what to do. There's not this, you know, it was like there was a little bit of talks about therapeutics that came out. And I know that this is during the Trump administration. And that's when the whole like hydroxychloroquine and, you know, the basically like, there was that little mashup of him being like, "Oh, we're looking into giving you like bleach or something like in your system." You know, it's different ways to clean your system, which at the time, you know, made the president at the time look kind of stupid.
Yeah, he got raked over the coals.
Yeah, but
that.
at the end of the day, it was like, you know, there's just all these ideas of trying to push therapeutics on top of getting a vaccine done because at that time I'm sure it probably seemed like the only way for the mass amount of people to be comfortable with it is to say we have something to give you to protect yourself, right, which is a vaccine, right? So then that translates into once the vaccines are out there, you know, they start pushing them, and then we had an administration change, and then it was all you can do is do the vaccine. This is the only way out. This is the only way we can be normal. Protect yourself. I mean, look at how many politicians, TV personalities that literally are on camera saying that if you get the vaccine, you're good.
Yes.
Like you're not going to, you can't get it, you can't transmit it. I believe it was Rachel Maddow who said that if you get the vaccine, you're done. You're good.
Stops there, she said.
Yes.
Stops there.
Right now.
Isn't that misinformation?
Well,
Yes.
at the time, look, yes, it is misinformation,
And it was.
but it wasn't as like, again, this is like the whole conspiracy stuff, right? It's only conspiracy until it's like just generally accepted, and that normally comes like 4 to 5 months after the claim is made. Because at that time, it was no, it's still transmitting. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that is coming out, and there's a lot like look. In our field, is like, yeah, that person's vaccinated, but they got COVID. And
but it went against the narrative, and it went against a needle in every arm, and so you couldn't freely say that without being villainized.
Oh yeah, if you say that on TV, you're off.
And she was a champion for if you do it, it stops here, and it's your, you know, it's your duty And so,
Well, and how many people that listen to her, and then not picking on her at all,
Right.
anybody who is out there saying that, that is I mean, she's a prominent public figure. You know what I mean? So if everyone who's saying that, if it's one person that goes out and gets vaccinated, and let's say they die, or they have some gnarly adverse reaction, right? Who gets held accountable for that?
well, nobody.
Nobody does. I mean, I'm saying this.
Yeah.
I know no one
Right.
gets accountable. Otherwise, we would have an actual issue right
Absolutely.
now, because there are people that have been vaccinated that had very bad responses, and they are life changing. Now, it may not be on the scale, you know, but if we're worried about every single person, right? Because that was the push of this. That's the buildup. Of it.
Absolutely.
You need to do your part. You need to do this. But if that one person dies because of this, we just conveniently forget about it, or maybe don't use that to be like, hey, maybe this isn't for everybody,
Right.
and we should focus in on some of the therapeutics, a different vaccine.
That's been so infuriating to me, is this one size fits all. That's not medicine. It never has been. And, you know, physicians practice medicine. We use off-label medications all the time. That's part of medicine. And physicians practicing medicine and being able to utilize all their tools to help a patient have the best success and the best outcome is what is done daily. So to then be in a pandemic situation where you can't prescribe freely, you can't think outside the box, you can't use off-label medications. If people are dying, and this is a crisis, and this is a pandemic, we should be throwing everything at it, everything in the kitchen sink at it, doing everything in our power to save and collaborate. Teams should be collaborating and discussing. It came from one individual, Dr. Fauci, who does not practice medicine and treat patients. And it was, I mean, he deems himself science. He deemed himself science.
Hold on. An attack on Dr. Fauci is an attack on science.
Yeah. Well, I'm attacking him.
No, that's what he said. He said that on television.
Yes.
He was speaking in third person, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
you reference
Yes.
yourself in a third person as
Yes.
in if you attack him, you are attacking science in general. And it's like, whoa, man.
Yeah.
You know, okay, you're obviously
Right.
in a prestigious position, but like act like it.
Right.
You know, it's...
And if we have physicians in this country, although they're few and far between, that are successfully treating this virus, and their death rates are significantly lower than those that are being seen in the hospital, why are we muting them?
Because it doesn't...
Fit the narrative, politics, and money.
Well, I mean,
Money, baby.
And you can't like as far, because you got it's a global scale, right? Or not even global scale. We'll say it's international and global are the same thing. It's on our country scale, right? If you're trying to convince everybody one thing, that this is it, you cannot have these other situations, because I mean, right? You go to Dr. Zelenko, Dr. Peter McCullough, Robert Malone, all these guys that are coming out there that they have extensive studies and personal experience with treating thousands of people.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that those treatments are going to work for everybody. But what we're showing is that there is other options there, and we are just muting that. And for a country that we tout ourselves that we're so much against, communism and these kind of things, and I'm not trying to get all crazy politically right now, but just as a reference, like that's what happens in those countries, right? North Korea, Russia, this thing. You are being controlled from the top down, from federal level. On this is it. It's like, this table's brown, and you're going to tell everyone this table's brown. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's chestnut. I don't know what color the table is, but just as an example. But you're not allowed to have any other opinion in it when it's coming from the top down. And we mimicked that in this crisis period.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate is what it is, because there's people that have been affected, and whether it's your physical health or whether it's your business, the ability to travel,
it's
family
criminal.
connection. Yeah.
It's unfortunately, it's criminal.
I would agree.
And you mentioned McDonald's. McDonald's stayed open. It was the mom and pop place that closed. It was the vegan restaurant up the street from me that I loved that is now out of business.
Yeah.
McDonald's still pumping out those cheeseburgers that are essentially killing people.
Oh, the chemicals and shit. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. Look, every now and then on Saturday when I get a little drunk, I'll get some McDonald's, but it's not every day. But yes, it's not good for you.
Same.
McDonald's isn't. Do you guys remember that movie? God, it came out like Sam. Maybe you know it was like 2004. The guy who did a documentary on eating McDonald's
Yes.
every day. For
Yes.
fun.
And he
Supersize me.
ate it supersized.
Me. Do you remember what it did to his body
Yes.
at the end?
The lab work.
The lab work. What
His
it
lab
showed?
work was insane.
Absolutely insane.
His liver functioning.
yeah.
That was the big one. Is
That
it-
was his
it-
big-
by like 50%
Yes.
reduction. In,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
granted, too, everyone's financial situation is different. And I remember reading this article where this mother is she's poor and she's got 3 kids. It's cheaper for her to go order off the dollar menu for her kids to eat than to go to the grocery store. And I'm like, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
There's a huge problem here right now.
Right.
That's not good. If we want people to be healthy, you got to encourage the exercise and eating healthy, but also make the food affordable.
And look at what's happening now.
Oh, the inflation's through the roof. It's insane right now. It's absolutely insane. Oh, by the way, I just want to say shout out to Vladimir Putin. Thank you for ending COVID and the mandates. Well done, my friend.
Oh, man.
I mean, where's Fauci? Fauci, where are you? He's gone. He's disappeared.
Well, the science said that
What
on the
happened?
State of the Union Day that we're good with masks. I feel like the new science thing is kind of like the like weather reporting. You know,
That's pretty
they're like, we see some COVID coming up for the next 4 days, and then it's going to drop down. And we have a no mask day here next Friday. It's going to be pretty
Right.
sweet, you
So-
know. And it's like, how
Yeah.
fucking accurate are those? It was supposed to rain all day yesterday.
Right.
Well, and here's what I'm confused about.
All right.
That's true. I totally agree with you. I like where you're going with that. But I just talked to a couple of people I know at LA County Fire, and they're starting a Skelly process. Yet mask mandates are being lifted. And other things are being lifted with mandates, and they're still going through with it. Which is that still happening?
It's insane. I'm so excited. I was back east. My brother got married a couple weeks ago.
Yo, shout out, brother.
Yeah, congratulations. And ding,
ding.
yeah, it's a bell ringer. And Boston lifted the vaccine mandate while I was there.
Wow.
So that came up on my news feed. I was like, oh, they knew I was coming to town.
Okay, so I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Remember that story?
Okay.
When they lifted it and you were there, was it like a party? Did people kind of... It
Well-
seemed like more people went out and started going back to the bars and having a good time, or is it just like status quo?
Technically, I was in Newport, Rhode Island. That's where the wedding was.
I got you. Okay.
So I wasn't in Boston. I wasn't in Boston proper.
Okay.
I would hope they went out and partied. But to be honest, from afar. I mean, Boston's a very unique place. And so when they put these mandates into place, I thought, good luck with that. And people were compliant. I thought, where are my Bostonians at
Bostonians
here?
usually they're fighters.
Yeah, they're scrappy. So I'm like, but I wasn't there to witness it firsthand. I think we're seeing the house of cards is crumbling.
I agree.
And people are scrambling. People are selling stocks. People are lifting mandates, backtracking. I truly believe that in time we will have a clear picture of all the players and all the corruption. But in the meantime, people are still, like myself, not earning a paycheck based on a policy that was put into place months ago that we can now for certainty say that vaccine does not keep you from getting COVID. It doesn't keep you from transmitting it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, there is some science that supports the fact that it decreases the severity of illness.
No.
Who's high risk? We're still not having that discussion. We're still not having the therapeutic discussion, the health component discussions. So to me, it's so obvious. It's almost comically silly. And again, we do the masks. Like, you can do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around. Like, you can wear the mask here, but you can't wear it there. And then if you go in here, you put it on. But then if you go over there, you don't have to put it on. And I might have to wear it in San Diego, but if I drive up to LA, I don't, or vice versa. Like, it's just, and our kids are wearing them in school.
I feel like the
Get me
the
started
hard
on that.
part. Yeah, I know, right? The hard part is that we are 2 years into this, and it's become kind of not saying for anyone individually, but overall, if you had to kind of look at the big picture, it's been normalized so much to a certain extent where even I think people that aren't, maybe they don't believe it, but they'll wear a mask just because, like, whatever.
They've gotten used to it.
Right.
I'm
And
seeing
that's-
children walking to school by themselves outdoors, teens
Yeah.
with them on.
Do you think, and then that's a great, there's a whole
Kids
thing
now
in
that
this, yeah.
don't want to take them off because they're
Well, it's
fearful.
almost like those formative years, they grew up in that.
Right.
So it's like that's kind of their norm. And God, it's so weird because I was just trying to look it up while you were talking, but I was watching a video the other day, and you know how Pfizer had to release the side effects?
Yes.
Did you see that humongous list of the side effects of the Pfizer vaccine? It was
9 pages.
Yeah.
The font is 0.3.
It was incredible.
I thought they pushed that back 50 years. That they weren't.
Oh,
allowed
no.
to
They were
release
forced to release it. They had to.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't.
9 pages.
Come across that.
I mean,
And I think
list
we'll
after
see
list
another
after list.
55,000 pages by April. Yeah, they wanted 75 years. The judge said absolutely not.
So it did get shut
Thank
down.
goodness.
Good, yeah.
So they're disclosing. So I spent the majority of my day yesterday trying to read through the 400-page documents that were released, I believe, on the beginning of the week. 9 pages of it is side effects.
Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible.
And it is incredible.
And I'm thinking, do people know this yet?
No.
Do people know this yet? Do they still think it like, again, if you feel like you want to get the vax, go for it. I think it's freedom of choice. You know, your body, do what you want with it. But to be forcing this on people and you have 9 pages of side effects, we got some problems here.
Where there's risk, there must be choice. There has to be choice.
Yeah.
And if people that have been significantly injured, life-altering injuries, outside of death,
Right.
Because there's been a fair amount
What
of
was the
that as well.
cardiac- There's been a few young men in their 30s that have that, I can't remember what the...
Myocarditis?
I believe so, right? It's not like, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was this is probably 3 months ago, and like it wasn't. It can't. You know, when you start reading stuff and it's like, oh, whistleblower. It's like, dang, because it's not coming from an official study. But that was when they're talking about for them was it the DOJ as far as no.
Pfizer had as a whistleblower.
But it was from the military.
Okay.
And it was just talking about it wasn't saying that like that the vaccines caused all this stuff. What it was showing was from the inception of being a mandate in the military to show what kind of medical issues that and this is all branches of the military. And it was going from like they averaged like 30,000 a year with people that have cancer issues.
It skyrocketed.
In that 1 year afterwards, it was up to like 400,000. You know, and that could vary from like skin cancer to something more serious. But you know, and that with the cardiac issues, with the myocarditis, and there were these reports. You know, because it wasn't some big.
They keep
news
their
thing.
own data. The military keeps their own data, and so they had the subset of information that the general public typically wouldn't see.
I didn't know that.
So
Interesting.
They have, their own medical team. They keep their own data, and they had several physicians that came forward as whistleblowers saying, "We are looking at all-cause mortality over a series of years, and we're seeing things since the inception of the vaccine." Much higher rates of certain conditions. Some were like over 200% increases. They were significant. They spoke at the Senate hearing, after the Washington, D.C. rally.
Okay.
Dr. Peter McCullough and is it Ron Johnson, Senator, hosted a roundtable called COVID Second Opinion. If you haven't seen it,
check that out.
I highly recommend you watch it. The full recording, their full roundtable discussion, I believe, is like 4.5 hours. Wow. So it's in depth, but there are a very diverse panel, and they don't always agree, but they openly discuss how they're treating COVID, what we could have done differently. They really discuss every aspect of this pandemic in this discussion. Wow. And then at the end, the attorney for the whistleblowers in the military comes forth and describes that the data that they're seeing and raises a red flag. And I hope I'm saying his name right. I think it's Ron Johnson. The senator then, based upon that, said that he would request an inquiry. And there was some talk that data was not too long after that being redacted and removed. And so...
Whoops.
Yes.
We are living in like the best science fiction movie you could ever think of.
However, the whistleblowers, I believe, already have the data and the information needed to show what they believe is happening there.
Do you think that a lot of the a lot of the hesitancy with those kind of pieces of information that come out? Do you think that the part of the problem is that people inherently just trust that the government has the best intention for you?
Yes.
And I think because that's the only way I can conceptualize with why everything just because with a lot of the things that we just said, if you were to talk to somebody, and let's say it's before COVID, if you were going to say that this is how this is going to shake down and you're not going to believe it, right? Most people, I think, would be like, nah, there's no way. There's no way the government would do that to us.
Right.
Right? And then, but now we're in this position, and I feel like for so much that has happened in the last 2 years, I think that it's just because we just trust it.
Yes.
Right? As a collective. And I'm not saying individually, and there's always going to be extremes on both sides. So I'm not speaking for everybody. I just think as a general overview is that most people are just kind of like, you know what, whatever. They're not going to do that to hurt us, or they're not trying to hurt us. And I don't believe that they're really trying to hurt you, but I think what they're trying to do is just keep you in line.
Yes.
And
there's a level of complacency. It's just, I hate to say it, Americans are lazy.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
But we sometimes like what's just easy, and we've become accustomed to, a sort of a cush life here in this country that not everybody in the world gets to experience. Right. And I think a lot of people put blind faith in the government. And when you initially said that, how many people said, well, I did it because my doctor told me to? Well,
a lot.
This is serious enough that we need to be asking questions, and you need to be critically thinking. And so it's wonderful if your doctor told you to, but you need to ensure for your own well-being that they're able to give you informed consent.
Right. And
that is extensive, and that requires independent research, because you're not going to get that on CNN or Fox. I'll work both sides. I think people would be shocked to find out how many medical providers are not in the know, are blindly saying, you should get this, we promote this, and haven't done the independent research.
Are they doing that because of kickbacks? Are they getting money? You know what I'm saying? Because I remember the reports the more COVID patients they report, the more money they get. The more money, the more people they get to get vaccine, the more money the hospital gets.
Well, I think it's almost like a pyramid in which, yes, hospitals and medicine is business. It's all about money. Yeah. We follow the money. That's something I was very naive to when I went in as a nurse to help people. It's a financial component to medicine and pharmaceuticals. It is huge money, and there is a bottom line, and they're there to make money. But beyond that, there's a tier. You have those people that, yes, there's government involvement and state involvement and tax money and donations and money to funding money for your, scientific research. And all of that is on one level, very financially driven. And then, yes, there is a level of kickback to physicians to I think that has been managed to some degree with what pharmaceutical companies can do and can't do as far as incentives, that at one point in time, you could get vacations and whatever it may be. That has been monitored to some degree, perhaps not perfectly. Mm-hmm. Physicians have been threatened. Their licenses have been threatened. If they prescribe certain medications, write medical exemptions, they're at risk of losing their license.
Which would end their career.
It would end their career.
Right.
I received a letter probably about 3 months ago it was a letter written collectively by 5 or 6 different nursing organizations. And the letter, I'm assuming, went out to everybody within the state, the Breeze website where you have your licensing through. But it primarily said nurses have a responsibility to the community, and the narrative and information for which you are supposed to follow is via the CDC and the FDA. And if you branch off from that narrative and you are giving information to the public that is deemed misinformation, which we still haven't defined, by the way, That's important to do when we're throwing around that term so frequently. But you're at risk of discipline and losing your license. And then it went on to say specifically nurses that utilize social media as a platform to reach people, to try to educate the community. Pretty much we see you, we're watching.
Oh, hell no.
And,
so they're trying to threaten you
yes.
over your own private
Voice.
use and voice of social media.
Freedom
They can't
of
fucking
speech.
tell you what you can do with your social media or not. That's crazy.
Lovely
That's
letter.
so ridiculous.
Yes.
God, what has this country
Yeah,
come
I have befriended, I will say this process has been beautiful in a way that I've met people that I would have never met before.
I agree with you.
You know,
Yeah.
And so I've befriended a nurse up in Washington State. Awesome lady. And she is under active investigation. So someone reported her to the board for something she had posted on social media that I believe, if I remember correctly, was health related. It was like health promotion. It wasn't even anything
I don't believe the lies.
conspiracy driven.
It was like, you should be healthy.
You should take vitamin D.
Yeah.
Oh, evil doer. So her license is actively under investigation because of that.
If they try to do something, doesn't she have grounds to sue? I mean, you can't tell somebody what they can do with their freedom of speech and their social media, correct?
But we have an obligation to the public as nurses.
Yeah, but that's,
You know,
but see,
it's a thin line.
It is a thin line because of all the like Emergency Operations Act, because everything is being flown under like state of emergency.
Yeah.
It skews the law. Because instead of it being black and white, of like being like, you know, and when I say black and white, as far as like your First Amendment right, as far as free speech or
Right.
whatever you're going to post,
Yeah.
you know, to a certain extent of being like kid porn or so, you know, something ridiculous,
Right.
But they have these abilities to kind of contour whatever it is associated with what they're trying
Right.
to deliver. So in this case, if your friend posted something that's saying like, hey, the best way to protect yourself against COVID is to eat healthy and exercise and get sleep and clean your house and, you know, do all these like normal functions of what would be a healthy lifestyle, because she links that maybe with the word COVID, it'll flag. And if someone that follows
Someone reported her.
goes, I can't believe that they're doing this. They're a nurse. They should know better. And they get on and then they contact the job. Now the job or whatever, you know, whoever she works for has to at least address it.
Right.
And I think from an employer standpoint, they don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Because it's an uphill battle that they probably won't win because everything is so skewed right now.
She had already lost her job due to vaccine noncompliance. So,
Okay, well, that's just stupid.
yes, I was threatened yesterday on social media. A woman said she was going to report me to the medical board, and I had to, you know, bite my tongue, as I don't have a license with the medical board. I'm not a physician. So good luck with that. Good luck finding me through the medical board.
Yeah.
But
you should forward me her.
she came at me angry, and really I wished her well, and then she just kept going, to which then I just block. And that's really, I will say, I'm surprised. Very few and far between. The majority of feedback that I receive is very positive and very encouraging and very supportive. So I'm grateful for that.
Unfortunately, right now in this country, the few are running the many, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I'm not going to go into too deep into that. But there, you have said, I think actually that this has united a lot of people in ways we haven't seen in a long time. The problem is our leadership and what's going on, and
Lack thereof.
oh, very. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, look, I saw a picture the other day that gas. I think it was at Newport Beach. That was like $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon.
It's 513 by my house,
Yeah.
and I don't live anywhere near Newport.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
$5.35 in San Diego. So a friend of mine was up in Mammoth, said it was over $6 a gallon. You guys will get a kick out of this. So I was over in Point Loma the other day, area, San Diego. Beautiful area. There's a lot of fishing. It's a fishing area, and a lot of people reliant upon that industry. That is their livelihood. So I'm just at the gas station trying to get a couple gallons. But the woman there is, you know, she's all turned about. The teller, she can't. There's a long line. I'm like, what's going on here? Oh, the price just went up. She's trying to fix the price at the pumps. I'm like, okay, it just went up another 20 cents. So we're waiting. She comes back. She's like, I'm sorry, guys. Nobody can get gas. I can't turn the new price on. I got to call corporate, right? I'm like, God forbid we bought our gallon at $5.50. It's got to be $5.70. But okay. So the guy in front of me was like, this is crazy. I said, yeah, I know it's crazy. And he said, well, I'm a fisherman, and you should know, like, we're stockpiling diesel. And I was like, huh? Wow. And he said, we're all very concerned that we're not going to have gas for our boats, which means we can't go out and do our job. And so I don't know what the reserve is here in Southern California. I don't know how that works. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to go home and get my jerry cans. I got a couple jerry cans. Girl, I'm not a doomsday prepper.
No,
but I got some stuff.
Yeah.
And this has certainly opened my eyes to the fact that I personally want to be a lot more self-reliant.
Yeah.
And so I had bought them about a year ago, and I hadn't used them. So I'm like, now's the time. Plus, I was thinking, I'm going to fill these up before it's $8 a gallon.
It's only going to get worse with the war that's happening right now between Russia and Ukraine, and the fact that our damn government is still buying our oil from Russia.
Yes.
And to let you know, that's actually the worst oil you can fucking buy.
Yeah.
Ours is cleaner. But because our current administration wants to do the whole green deal, he ain't doing it. He's fucking us over. I'm sorry, I mean to cuss in front of you, but it's just like, it's so aggravating.
Right.
Like, you're screwing people over. And what he's doing with this inflation is he's crushing the middle class.
Oh, absolutely.
Crushing. So you're eventually going to have the haves and the have-nots. It's going to be wiped out in the middle.
Which we've sort of had here in California for a long time, is the have and the have-nots. And there's this small middle class that just scratches.
Yep.
I live in it.
Yeah.
To stay afloat, to live in this state. And with the price of gas, yes, I buy organic milk. I guess I don't have to buy organic milk. $7 for a gallon of organic milk. I have a growing boy. I want him to have organic milk.
Right.
Yeah.
That's more than gas.
Right.
We do the same thing at home. It's crazy.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
The cost of
I just want to reassure you guys, though, don't worry, because I watched the State of Union address. And Biden said that he's aware of the inflation and they're working on it. So we're good. We're totally good.
Find your happy place, girl.
Was that before or after?
Oh, my God.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi.
Help me with that. I need help.
Anyone, like, what was going on there?
I don't
know. I mean, to me, what that, I would say, in my experience in life, that looks like someone who's like been up for about 22 hours and a little chotched out on some drugs.
Yes.
That's what I would say that look. She was like, I mean, you could see she was grinding her teeth and she was...
Well, dude, she's got dentures.
No, it was like she did. It was a weird...
Crazy.
Or she was practicing to be like a supervillain, like in a new movie. Because that look, if she would be like... More money.
But she like couldn't control herself there for a minute. Like, she started with the rubbing and then she stood up. Nobody else is standing. Stood up and like leaned over. Like, I thought she was gonna like pounce on him or something.
She's probably on Molly.
I was like, I've been to those EDM concerts.
All right, that's what I was thinking.
I know when people's drugs are hitting them, and they all have that look where they're like yeah.
Okay, I told you guys this earlier. Sam, I said this earlier. And I've been talking to people this week. I'm like, they have to have Biden on something. That fool's on speed, something, dude, because his cognitive decline and everything else.
It's the worst speed ever.
It's not working.
He's on slow, dude.
They're like, hey, Biden, we need you to go in the Oval Office and take a bump before you go out there.
Yeah, do something. I mean, at least be lively. If you're going to sell this bullshit to everybody, you should at least like
own it.
Yeah. Hey, I know things are bad, guys, and we're really trying to make things better. No, it's like, this is good. Like, I was the only reason why I watched it is because I was curious. I'm like, out of you can have a laundry list of things that have been very impactful, and I would say generally bad for pick one part of whether it's economy, people's health, whatever.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what was he going to say, and he didn't say shit. He started with which he had to address we don't have to go into the war thing, but. And I was like, okay, all right, you're going from there. And then it was just, he brought up some bipartisan legislation being passed that was like from a year ago, doesn't, kind of address the inflation part by saying he's aware of it.
Thank you. I'm glad you are.
Yeah, but you know who doesn't have to pay for gas? probably freaking the president, which makes sense.
Or
But-
all those people, dude.
Yeah.
dude. I
Come
don't
on,
know.
Pelosi goes in there. Her wages is what, 150 or 200 grand. Yet she's a multimillionaire.
200 million. And then
Well,
we know
that's where
ridiculous.
if you're willing to look at it when you see what the salaries are, but yet their
Multi-
capabilities and
No wonder they don't want to retire.
exactly.
I mean, think about this.
Right.
Biden's 79. Pelosi's like 82. A lot of these other there's so. I hope I am sitting on a beach drinking some freaking beer when I'm that age, enjoying the later days of my life, not going to work and sitting
Right.
in meetings and trying to like give it up.
it's demanding.
Oh yeah.
Like even though it's my opinion, they're not good at what they do.
Yeah, they're
it's
not.
still a demanding job. It requires you to be there. I mean, especially with travel. I remember when Biden was campaigning, I thought, how does he keep it? Like, how do you keep going? Like you said, sleep deprivation. It's a real thing. It will fuck you up.
Oh yeah. I want to know what drugs they have on. I'm like, what are they putting in this guy's
I
system?
don't know about speed
Because
doesn't seem like he's on speed.
Did you
I don't
see
know.
the thing? He was. It's something. It was. It was global too. I want to say it was a climate forum, and he fell asleep.
Yes.
Like he
Yes.
full on
Yes.
took a doze.
You know who does that a lot too is Bill Clinton.
Oh.
He's always falling asleep, dude. By the way, Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah, but he's like old now. During his presidency, he was cracking. And I'm not saying I agree with all of the stuff that from the Clintons, but like Biden's like, I mean, he's just like old.
You gotta check a pulse.
Old man, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
old.
when they
dude.
scanned the crowd during the State of the Union, there was a couple people in there sleeping, dude. I was like, dude, it looked like a room of crypt keepers,
Right.
dude. Like I'm just like
Yeah.
these people are one step from the grave.
Right.
How are they
No.
running our country?
Because those people, they've been in it for so long that it's like they already know what they're gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
They know, let me put this back. They don't write what they're gonna say.
No.
Their writers write for
Yes.
them what they're gonna say.
Right.
They don't pick out their clothes.
Right.
Their wardrobe person picks out their clothes. All they have to do literally is show up and have a little bit of a capacity, a little bit when I say that, to read a prompter.
and
right?
rub their hands together.
Yeah. Well, I was like, and that's,
Their
I say that
I'll never get over
because our president struggles with that sometimes. But I know we've listed some Democrats, but it's across the board. Like
Oh, yeah.
I think Mitch McConnell needs to get out of there. I was like, I'm not a super fan of Lindsey Graham. Like
Right.
there's a handful of politicians across the board that
Yeah.
they fit the
Right.
narrative of just a
Right.
shisty
Yeah.
politician
Right.
for personal gain.
Do you know who I will say is up there that I thoroughly enjoy is Senator Kennedy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's feisty.
Yeah, he is.
He's feisty. He shoots from the hip. He's saying what's on his mind.
So I like DeSantis.
Oh,
And I-
well,
and I don't
yeah.
agree with all of his stuff, but I
Right.
just he's more of a I'll say it. Like when he there was just this last week he had something where there was I think it was
The
a group of high
students.
school. Yeah, when he walks up and he's like, "Hey guys, the science is out. You don't have to wear a mask. I'm not telling you that you don't need to. You take it off, but I take it off. It's pointless.
He said, "Stop the theater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Enough."
You know what I told somebody? I said, DeSantis reminds me of the Ukrainian president. If something were to happen to Florida, that fool would stay and fight.
I agree.
He would
Yeah.
not leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I think of DeSantis. He's just
a baller.
he's just kind of he's just a rough, tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
he totally is.
Yeah.
And he's not really political that much, but he gets the job done.
Right.
I dig that.
And he really stood his ground. He took a lot of slack and scrutiny, and people still, they want to say that Florida crumbled under his leadership, but in all honesty, it didn't. And they never had any significant incidents that showed that they acted irresponsibly or put the community at risk. I think they're a prime example of how living freely still works.
Well, he let the people decide.
Yeah.
Educate them, let them see it. If they want to be vaccinated, cool. If they want to wear a mask, cool. If you don't, then you don't.
Right.
Like let it be. And
Right.
his state is a prime example of how that
Yes.
is actually
Yes.
thriving.
Yes.
Everything's normal over there.
Right.
Where you, I always tell people I'm 50-50. 50% of me is liberal, 50% of me is like Republican. There's things I agree with on both sides, but straight up, Democratic run cities and states turn to shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing it. We have
Yeah.
the most people leaving the state of California ever.
Mass exodus.
Ever. Same with New York. New York is a madhouse.
Yeah.
People, it's the first time in history. I think, Sam, what they say, like 60 or 70 years in San Francisco and New York, rent has gone down. And I was in New
Yeah.
York, I think, October not New York, San Francisco last year in about October, November.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking down the street, and you know those taxpayer buildings where there's businesses down below, where
Yeah.
it's like corner, and then
Yeah.
you have rent or people renting up top.
I lived up there for a while. Yeah.
Blocks and blocks empty, top and
Wow.
bottom, for lease,
Wow.
for rent. And unfortunately, it just seems like the homeless are
San
starting to take that
Francisco
place
is,
over.
yeah. And I've lived there, it's been over 10 years now. Beautiful city.
It's a fun place. That's
Loved
why I'm so
it.
bummed to see what's
I
happening.
loved it.
Yeah.
And been meaning to go back. And anytime I mention it, people are like, don't do it.
It's changed
It's
a
a
lot.
homeless, epidemic.
Yeah.
It's significantly hurt the city.
Well, walking through there during the day, it's almost like very similar to New York and some of these cities where you can go out any time of the day and there's people everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like a ghost town. It was such
That's
a
weird.
weird feeling. It really was. I'm like, damn.
And
dude.
I haven't said it in a while. I used to say all the time, I love New York. It used to be my favorite city in the country.
Amazing place.
Love the energy. I like that city vibe.
Yeah.
I like being able to walk out my front door and go to the coffee shop, or that I don't want to have to drive. I like city living. I like, walkable. And the energy there, like you said, I mean, you could, any hour.
Oh, yeah.
There's
always something going on.
Midtown, it feels like you're at a festival in the middle of the day. There's so many people, and it's just that energy, the city. And I haven't been to New York in a while, but
It's
It's a
lawlessness
shame.
over there.
It's a
There's no
shame.
support for the police. I
Yeah.
mean, you see it in San Francisco and New York. People are just robbing these
What is
Walgreens and
up
Target,
with
and
that?
nothing's happening.
So there's been, correct me if I'm wrong, like they've decriminalized.
So it's like anything $1,000 or under, they're not going to pretty much do anything. Right? Isn't that how it's?
Right. Because
Jordan's
I've seen
better at this.
videos of people going into stores
So there was like
and just taking it and walking out.
Yeah. So it's basically like as long as it's under a certain dollar amount, which I believe was under $1,000,
bar,
that it
right?
would be considered like a misdemeanor instead of like felony, like theft or whatever. But
Right.
that's kind of skewed because that also changed this is probably like 5 or 6 years, maybe longer than that, when they changed like the drug possession charges and with is it Grand Theft Auto, right? When you steal a car, like depending on how much the car's worth, like it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of factors that go into that, but one of the things in the last year was that I don't know if it was a legislation passed or I couldn't remember the name of it, but talking about
Yeah.
how it basically like de-incentivizes like cops to truly pursue. It's
It was
like,
one of Gruesome's great ideas.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and
Okay.
and shortly after, that's when you started getting more of the videos of like people walking out with
Yeah.
shopping carts at Walmart, and they're like, "You
Yes.
didn't pay," and he's like, "I don't, fuck it, whatever."
And I don't think they're
know?
calling the cops because, well, one, there's a shortage of them.
yeah.
Two, for what? You're sort of wasting taxpayer money at that point if it's decriminalized and you're not going to,
Well, and
nothing's going to come of it.
Our police aren't supported. They're treating them like criminals now, and the criminals
Yeah.
have more rights than almost the police do. So I support police, but I don't blame them for not wanting to do anything.
Right.
Why? Why am I going to risk my job and lose my home and not be able to support my family?
Well, it's a
Right.
risk versus gain thing. Like if you my hat goes off to law enforcement because that is one job I would never want to do.
Difficult,
like working with people has its difficulties. Working
Next
with
level.
people in that
Yeah.
realm, I can only
Yeah.
imagine. So, I could see that if you're like, you got a call to go out to I keep using Walmart. It doesn't matter.
CVS.
It doesn't matter what store it is. But if someone's stealing something
Yeah.
and you're like.
Yeah, somebody just
am I
took
really gonna do
50
here?
bars of soap.
Right, because if that person who took, let's say a bag full of whatever, soap,
Deodorant. The
whatever.
video I saw was deodorant. You know why
dude,
they have it
it
locked
was-
up anyway, but they had to like smash the deodorant lock. And I'm like, that's a lot of deodorant.
And from the perspective, I think from law enforcement, you'd be like, if that person is that like okay with doing that, like they feel convicted in their actions, you can only imagine what the interaction would be if you're trying to stop them.
True.
Right? So it's like one, publicly, everyone's gonna, because that's what everyone does anyways. They pull out their phone, they start recording.
Yeah.
Right? Two, you have someone who's going to be vindicated in what they're doing, whether they're of sober mind or not. Right? And then three, now you got to stop them, and you're like, what? What am I really going to do? Do
Right.
I want to get in an altercation with whether they're old, young,
Right.
whatever? It doesn't matter. right? Do I really want to put myself in that position? Because it's like, for a misdemeanor charge?
Well, I was
Like,
going to
am gonna
say,
change
they
this?
just
Am
get
I-
released and it never goes to court anyway because it's been decriminalized. So
Right,
it's
am
sort
I-
of a waste of time.
Right. Are you changing this person's life and getting them the help that they need to get past their ability to steal 50, toilet paper rolls and something? Probably not. So I feel like that's where the engagement level is, where if I were a police officer, I'd be like, I'm going to wait for something where, someone's being robbed
Right.
or some, like a more, I guess everything's important. So I don't want to say not important stuff, but, and that's where we get like in society where then does that become something normal? It's like,
Well, I know in San Diego, we have a shortage of police officers, and that's been long going. And now we're looking at, letting more of them go due to vaccine mandates, which puts our city in an unsafe position. If you called, I'm not throwing them under the bus. They're fully aware they're short-staffed. There's a hierarchy of calls always when you call into 911. Obviously, your splinter isn't going to, get seen before the act of robbery.
right.
But they've made it very clear that the wait times are very long. I'm trying to think exactly. And when the protect the protectors, and we were talking about, losing more of the police force in an already tight situation, in that I myself have called 911 before and nobody came. I didn't make the cut of, the cut. So where I'm going with this is, I can see that a business owner would call and say, somebody is stealing in my shop. There's not enough staff to even get somebody there if they wanted to. Like when you're dealing with robbery and drugs and homeless and home invasions or assaults or whatever it may be, those sort of low-level crimes, if you will, are just going to get ignored. And then what does that do to our community?
Well, it doesn't instill confidence
No.
that you're protected from law enforcement.
No. And this was pre-COVID when I called 911. I actually
Can
called
you
them.
imagine what it's like now?
And
Oh my God.
I was infuriated because I actually called 3 times. And I knew where the situation was going, and nobody ever came. And then the person that I was calling on ended up driving his car into the front of the house of one of my neighbors.
Wow.
He was extremely intoxicated. And I live next to a school, so I was concerned that was going to be a problem for when the school kids let out. But I had to go up the chain because I wasn't willing to let it go. I wanted to know why nobody ever responded to my 911 call.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it came down to staffing.
Wow. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say it. Anyways, the times that I have called 911 when I've seen something like I know it's gonna escalate, as you say, I see a weapon, and they come pretty damn quick.
Well,
I was just going to say,
I'll
Yeah.
just leave it at
that's how
that.
you would mitigate.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
how they come real fucking quick.
Otherwise, 'cause
Yes.
I feel like
Yeah.
all these like parody things like run into my head. Like when you were saying that, it's like, hi, 911, what's your emergency? They're like,
Yeah.
I think someone broke into my house. They're like, oh, really? Do you see them? Do they have a weapon? They're like, oh, hold on, let me go check. It's like, what do you expect?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm reporting a break-in or something, And I know that it comes down to staffing, and I know that the resources and what they're trying to do is deliver a service to the public. But the reality is that when you have all these other injects, as far as a lot of law change that limits their ability to do the police work, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not agreeing with everything that the cops do either. Believe me.
right.
But I also feel like that they have a job to do too. Right. And so we're kind of caught in this, like, do they have too much power? Do they have not enough power? But then on top of it, can they even work anymore because they're vaccinated or not? It's like there's all these different kind of realms that coincide when it comes to like the public delivery service, essentially. And that's unfortunate to hear that, you had an experience where that's the last thing you think, right? You're like, shit, this is the one time I'm calling 911
Yeah.
and no one shows.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
nuts.
And I had mentioned the experience to a neighbor after it happened. And he had lived in the neighborhood a lot longer than me. And he said, oh, yeah, the cops don't come here. And I was like, what? And he goes, unless you mention a weapon.
Yeah.
And then they show up right away.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, of course, then they have to show up right away. I hate to think that they're in a position where There's people in need, and they want to help everyone, and they physically can't. And so my call had merit. This guy was a risk to the community, and he proved that he did exactly what I thought he was going to do, and it could have been stopped. Yeah. But I don't know what else was going on in the community at that time that I didn't get a response because something else more horrific was happening.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, we're living in the best science fiction movie you guys have ever seen.
10 years from now, there's gonna be a really good recap of a lot.
Think of the kids in 2050 when they're learning about 2019 through 2022 or whatever. They're gonna be so stressed.
Yes.
How am I gonna remember all this?
I
shit?
saw a picture of a little girl. It was like a meme thing, right? And she was adorable, and she was like a kindergartner, and she was all like frazzled, and she had her pencil, and the caption said like, "Kids in 2050, like learning about 2020," and I was like, "Yeah,
I remember all this for a test.
Dad,
they probably won't even test.
Yeah,
it
like
then.
you guys lived through that. Like we lived through Y2K, H1N1, for a couple wars.
yeah." Y2K.
Yeah,
I remember that. The world was going to end.
Freaking 9/11.
Yeah.
Our generation's been through a lot. But
Yeah.
Jack, before we wrap this up, how can anyone support? Is it a group that is going through this together?
Yes.
You guys?
So, yes, there's a group of staff at Rady Children's Hospital. We have an active lawsuit against the hospital for discrimination. Okay. Our attorney, Dan Watkins, bless his heart, is an amazing individual.
Attaboy, Dan.
And he's fighting on behalf of hundreds of people. It's not just our case. He has many. And he just welcomed on 2 new attorneys to the practice to help continue to fight for people that have been discriminated against. We do have a Give, Send, Go account.
Give, Send, Go? Okay.
Give, Send, Go. There is one set up just for Rady nurses. And then there is one set up, a broader setup under Dan, and that is just a general fund to help him fight these lawsuits on our behalf.
And is there a link in your bio and on your
There
social media?
is a link in my bio.
What is your Instagram handle so everybody knows?
I am at not this nurse _ Jackie
Not this nurse _ Jackie. On Instagram.
on Instagram.
And at your Instagram, in the link is where people can help
It
out,
is.
right?
I have a link in the bio. It is the last link, and I think it says how to help nurses like me.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
I'm sure. Now, do you also work with Nurses for Freedom? I know it's another one. I haven't talked to anyone from there, but were they there when we met you in San Diego, or?
I know they're San Diego based. I've met the nurse from Nurses for Freedom.
Okay.
Lovely gal. And I'm not necessarily I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not affiliated really with any of the specific foundations or organizations, but there's a handful of them that I support in any way I can.
Love it. Okay.
And so Let Them Breathe and Let Them Choose is one that I've supported from the beginning, and they are tirelessly working to help our children, which, in my opinion, that's the next generation. That's where we need to be focused, is on our kids. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Absolutely.
You are honestly
Thanks.
a very well-spoken person.
Well, thank you.
Very, very well-spoken. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I know you're going through a lot, but thank you for what you've done as a nurse. Again, to reiterate, your job as a nurse is absolutely very important, and so are other nurses.
Yeah.
So all of them who are off right now, it's not a good thing. We need our nurses out there, so vital to our healthcare system and what's happening.
Yeah.
So thank you for your service as being a nurse, for coming here. We will try our best to support you as best we can. We're going to get this out next week.
Appreciate it.
Put the links up, share everything we can.
Awesome.
But thank you for standing up. And doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
It was it's been a rad to be able to talk to you and get the backstory. It's throughout this whole time, it's just, again, I know it's been said a couple times, but like, it's amazing that during a pandemic, the ability to lay off healthcare workers because of non-cooperation with that is just, it baffles my mind. But there's a lot of doom and gloom, right? A little bit of what we're going in there too. And like Tim said, just to highlight the fact of what you've done for, you said 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. And I'm sure all the families that you've impacted can probably say enough good things about you. So just thank you for coming on and sharing those stories, and we'll do what we can to get it out there, and God bless for sure.
Same to you guys. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then Sam, you've been listening to this the whole time, man. What do you got?
I love it, man. I love everything about like what you're doing, and just meeting you. It was just like a ray of sunshine, man.
Oh.
Yeah, we were recording everybody, and then as soon as she popped up, we were like, "Hey, what's up?"
Oh, that's cool.
It was amazing. Yeah,
Right on.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. We're here to support you, whatever, whenever.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sam's gonna write a rap song about it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh, let's go.
Let's go, right? Let's go.
All right. I want to be in it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's go on 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Let's go.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And that's it. Thank you for listening in, everybody. We'd like to thank our sound engineer who makes this podcast happen and makes us sound very good, Stephen Clark. And to our first sponsor, 89 Barbers. Look good, feel good, be great. Come get your haircut at 2 locations, Long Beach and in Orange, California. Your appointment can be booked at 89barbers.com. That is BARBRERS. 89barbers.com. Again, look good, feel good, be great. Check it out. It's my barber. He is the man. Thanks, everybody. Bye.